everybody. Welcome to the most important and relevant podcast in politics. This is The Yard Sign, coming to you every Monday night. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you being here. Of course, plenty to talk about as we get ready to reopen the country. And, of course, all the obstacles that are going to come along with that. We also have some other topics to dissect for you tonight, so let's go right into those. Lysol injections. What exactly did the president say? And man, why do the media have to be such jerks about it? Red and blue state differences. We'll really deconstruct that topic into how they are handling the reopening of the states. What restrictions are they continuing to put on their people? Who may be out of this sooner rather than later? And then, of course, that is going to help us go right into oil prices and an economic update. Oil prices are, just destroyed right now. The stock market seems to be recovering faster than the overall economy. And so what does that mean for you and I? We'll talk a little bit about that, along with a little bit of a local topic here for us here in the Tampa Bay area. Tom Brady, Gronk, like most New Englanders, retiring in Florida. They're coming to play for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I can't wait to break this down with the guys, and that's why we have them on the show today. Joining me, as always, over here to my left, right, is Anibal Cabrera. How you doing?
I'm doing great and glad to be back.
And come to us virtually from the White House, that is Chris VerKuilen right beneath me. What's up, buddy?
Oh, good. Your audio is working now. The remote connection is working wonderfully. It's wonderful here in DC. Good to see you.
You're now our official White House correspondent for the show. And that good-looking gentleman over there, going back to Tide Pods, I guess the Lysol injections didn't work out for him. That's Jake Hoffman. What's up, man?
How's it going, guys? Oh, just another week of quarantine,
Well, again, thank you guys for making time to be on the show. We have a lot to talk about. Let's start off with Lysol injections. Anybody jump on this bandwagon yet? Have any of you tried it out?
So I'm playing around a little bit with that, right? It is both a serious story and not a serious story is kind of the way that I look at it, right? So the thing is that we have a president, right? Like, if you haven't seen the clip yet, he does answer a question and start to kind of rant on about how there's a possibility here of, maybe injecting yourself with a disinfectant or using UV light to cure some of the symptoms of COVID. That's generally what he said. Now, as you guys have all seen, and probably the headlines have kind of misconstrued, is that people are taking that as injecting Lysol or like drinking bleach and things like that, right? So that's what it's turned into from the media. Is that what he meant? No. But at the end of the day, it both wasn't a good look. It wasn't a good answer. It was just kind of a rambling. It really threw off, I think, the scientists that were all standing around next to him trying to kind of grasp on, like, what is he getting at? But at the same time, he also is, like, actually pushing towards a real solution, which is disinfecting, UV light, those type of things. Those are all real
it's an actual
strategies.
thing.
They are actual things. They are actual strategies to fight diseases. Unfortunately, it wasn't really talked about in the most professional manner when he went up there. And so it's hard to sit there and defend him too much today. But at the same time, he was actually pointing towards something, and then the media kind of took it and ran with it and had some fun.
I will come on and say I kind of defend him on this one. And watching what was happening on social media, I saw people that never talk about politics, my wife included, never post anything, were like, okay, the media has gone way too far. It's almost like when he says he's talking about a green drink, the media starts talking about him telling people to eat grass. It's gone to the level of hypocrisy that people are so frustrated when it comes to the media and seeing the way they manipulate what he's saying. Because if you look at, I went back and I read the content, and then I looked at the video.
Yeah.
Looking to a doctor, he's looking to the side and says, hey, I know you guys are doing this. What about this? He's just spitballing. And we all know, if you've seen these press briefings, he does that quite often. He'll start thinking out loud and everything else. I think what is driving the media is because they see how weak the Joe Biden is, and they're looking for anything to grasp on to bring down the president. And it's more visual now than ever that you would see what he says, and they automatically spin it to make it sound like he's telling people to inject themselves. The word never used. He never said the word inject, and that's what pissed off a lot of people. That they went back and looked at it, and they're like, okay, this is definitely blatant. You guys are going too far.
Well, to your point, Anibal, the narrative that is building right now, like it or not for the media, is the fact that Joe Biden may be mentally too unstable to be the nominee for the Democratic Party. And that's going to throw the whole election in flux. And they're trying to level the playing field and saying, look, the president's saying crazy things too. And again, they're completely taking him out of context. And the truth is that this is where Trump's ego gets in his way, because, he should sidestep, let the professionals talk about those kind of things.
He also should have not defended himself too.
Yeah,
I think you just need to say, like, it didn't come out right? Instead of trying to back it up and double down on it.
That's
you're just digging yourself.
Done.
Yeah, you're digging yourself a deeper hole, So, Chris, which is your disinfectant of choice?
So actually, I've stuck to Clorox. I've had a hard time trying to get it into the syringe. It doesn't really want to pour quite right. But to what Jake was saying, this really goes to show that the media has been so desperate to find something of a flaw. Like, it didn't come out right. I'm willing to bet this was based in some kind of conversation he had with some kind of scientist or doctor about some kind of new technique they're going to use. But because he's not as smart as a doctor or a developmental scientist, that didn't come out right. So if this is the worst thing you can come up with, and like, if this is what your attack strategy is, then good luck fielding Joe Biden and having him not string together a coherent sentence in November, or between now and November, and winning that election. It's not going to happen.
This is not even. Go ahead, Jake.
I was going to say, this is where, it's like, I will come on the show week in and week out and defend Trump, and, I'll be voting for him in November. But this is where you have to step back and go, like, let's look at this objectively as Republicans and go, that was not a good sentence in a good moment for the president to come out and discuss that during the current situation, right? Like, and kind of like you were saying, like, if you need to defer to scientists, if you don't really know what you're talking about when it comes to, discussing medical strategies to the entire country, it's probably not the best move. But again, it's, we're talking now, it's, well, with the alternative, Joe Biden, I don't think he has any idea where he is. So
well, to Chris's point, though, it's not even a matter of intelligence. It's a simple fact that the president is talking about an industry. He's talking about a science that he's not familiar with whatsoever. And so it would be like any of us trying to talk about medicine or any type of medical issue going on, or, even in my case, let's say going deep into economics and that sort of thing. There's a whole set of vocabulary there that you're not familiar with. And for you to try to regurgitate that to the average person, which is what Trump normally does very well. Again, he just kind of, launched himself into a hole, and, was kind of continuing to dig that hole as he was trying to explain more or less what he meant.
It's just very disingenuous. So what I replied to the readers of the Tampa Bay Times newspaper was that you would have to evaluate that statement with the intelligence prowess of a golden retriever to extrapolate that meaning from it. And I really don't understand how anyone with any shred of sincerity could come up with that. It really is just, it's a gotcha is all I've seen.
And that's what they're going to continue to push for. I think at the end of the day, they've already made comments that the president will be scaling back his daily briefings. I don't think it's necessary to have it every single day now, just because of where the government and the states are moving towards. But I think it was a great, it's a push of, like, now we need to stop having daily briefings. If he's been doing this for every single day for maybe the last 20 days, you're going to get exhausted. Anyone's going to get exhausted. So I think that needs to be put on to display that he's going to start toning down his day-to-day briefings. They have a new press secretary. I've been told she's fabulous on this, so she'll be able to make more comments and be able to give more explanations of what's going on, so that now it's being centralized when it comes to conversation. When the president speaks, it's a little bit more tailored. And again, we haven't had this daily briefing in years now. So I think a lot of people are getting to the end of what they really expect, and we're moving into a new chapter. And when it comes to where we're at right now as a country.
Well, and a little side note there, that you just mentioned, the new press secretary is Kayleigh McEnany, who actually comes from Florida. So again, Florida continues to be a big part. Yeah, a big part of this administration. So we're excited to see her. Hopefully, she'll actually do some briefings, contrary to her successor, or actually whoever came before her. But let's move. No, I was between Huckabee and Kaylee.
If we try and dive into all of the ex cabinet members of the administration, we might get ourselves lost. So let's just keep moving.
All right, so red and blue state differences it is. Again, so right now, as you know, we're starting to see now, months in, the effect of the coronavirus all throughout the country. As expected, every state is very, very different in this situation. You've got your hot spots like New York City and California and LA and Miami. And then, these states at large, especially your larger states, are going to handle this differently. But we're also seeing finances now being a factor. The economies of these states, everybody's going to suffer in this, but of course, some states are suffering more than others. States are already talking about bailouts and the need for more money from the federal government. Of course, to no one's surprise, these states are primarily blue states. Anibal, being this is kind of your wheelhouse when talking about the economic factors in all of this. Do you see a bailout coming from the federal government for these states that didn't prepare for a crisis like this?
So every financial package that has been issued, and where I think we're on 3 or 4 now, has had money being sent to the states to be able to reimburse for hospitals, reimburse for supplies, reimburse for all the expenditures that are occurring at the moment. Do I see what will happen in the future in regards to certain states having issues when it comes to them paying back down the debt that they're pulling? Yes, but that's months and even years into the future when it comes to those situations. What's happening now, and I want to say, and I don't want to pull Europe into this, but Europe is a pure example of what it will not happen in the United States, whereas some countries in the Eurozone that are begging for assistance from the EU, and then you have the northern countries refusing to allow them to continue borrowing the rate they are, which could ultimately end the European Union as it is if Italy and Spain are able to collapse the way I think they should collapse. Whereas in the States, you have New York, the tri-state area, New York, New Jersey, and then some, and like maybe California, that are having the difficulties right now. But the way the system is built in the States, it flows throughout all 50 states of carrying the burden of these issues, of this debt. So I do think that issue. Yes.
I do think that bringing Europe into this is a good example, right? Because if you look at it from like a global perspective, a lot of the social programs that they have over in Europe and other countries that we like to point to and be like, oh, look at their healthcare system or this and that. Well, it is somewhat carried by United States innovation. It's carried by United States capitalism. It is funded largely by what we're doing over here. And so if you look at what that now we're talking about red and blue states opening back up, well, some states have balanced their budget. Florida has done a good job of balancing their budget every single year. We've happened to have great Republicans in the state legislature that have kept it, functioning properly for many years. But then you have other pretty large social welfare states like California or New York and some of these other Democratic-led cities, and they have massive pension plans that aren't funded. Infrastructure projects and transportation projects that aren't funded, and all these different things. And their balance sheets really aren't, or their budgets really aren't balanced. And now they're coming to the federal government to rely on other states that have been creating, that have been innovative, that have been, balancing their budgets and coming to bail them out. And then basically what you're getting is a redistribution of all of the free states to the blue states. And I think it's what you've seen in Europe for many years now, but it is something that we probably need to fight against pretty heavily as Republicans.
But you see it on the other side as well. You have red states that take more when it comes to social programs than blue states do. So there's a give and take. I agree with your argument, but at the end of the day, the whole view of it shows that not every state is created equal. And now
they're not.
Even the way states are opening opening up now is pretty different from red and blue states. Yes, you can argue the fact that how blue states handled the pandemic and where their cases have gone compared to the red states. There's real numbers there, but the way the states are opening up and the way the states are being pushed back. Yes,
well, it's not just the way they're opening
that
up.
Are moving up.
it's not just the way that they're opening up Anibal, because that's actually one of the things I wanted to talk about with this topic, was that they're all opening up, right, in their own separate ways. But, if you look at like Colorado versus Georgia, like which one has the media talked about like they're about to kill everybody in their state? Right? Like they've been just demonizing the governor of Georgia, demonizing these red state governors, saying that like they're going to let people back in. They don't care about the health. They don't care about any of this. And then everyone's going to die. But like, then you look at a blue state like Colorado, and like, they're not getting the same type of coverage, but they actually have very similar policies that similar to Georgia.
Almost complete similar politics. They're both opening up at the same time.
And do you have any major news outlet talked about how terrible of a job that the governor of Colorado is doing?
No. And only last week we were having articles about the North Dakota governor not refusing to close, and now you hear nothing, because now again, and we had this conversation 2 weeks ago. No one was talking about opening up the country. It was almost blasphemy for you to make a comment on Facebook or on media. Yeah, so was I.
These guys here in this square, we're all talking about real.
And so we were getting vaporized on social media, saying that we want people to die, and we want
vaporized is a strong term. I mean,
I
disagree with
it.
A little sci-fi, but
vaporize would insinuate that they were right.
Well, to the economic point in all of this, again, we're fortunate to live in a state that has a balanced budget amendment. But I did talk to a state house representative about this very topic. And the truth is that I think we're also fortunate that, and I think, at least for now, that I think we were fortunate that the legislative session was pretty much done by the time the coronavirus started to hit, and they were able to finish session without this really impacting all of the legislation that was passed and legislation repealed and budget decisions that were made. But at some point, you are going to have to confront this situation, because, states, cities, counties are also going to have to come to the realization that the tax revenue is going to drop off significantly, and that money has to be found elsewhere, or that money has to come out of reserves.
Well, and that's why they're going hands up and pockets out to the federal government to come bail them out, right? Like, they're the ones that can print the money. States can't print the money.
I think the states should request from the Federal Reserve, because it was the federal government that forced upon the closure of the company.
Well, yes.
When it comes to the budget, and the Florida legislature, the coronavirus was actually perfect timing, that it sucked all the funds out of the budget. I know many programs that were supposed to be funded this year and got nothing, because all that money went to preparation, purchases, and then reserves, because they knew that this was going to suck everyone dry.
Well, I will say a few things about this. One, that Florida did try and do something similar to the PPP program with loans and small businesses, trying to give refunding businesses that were forced to close, and they processed, I think, like 1% to 2% of the people who actually tried to apply, right? So they actually weren't prepared as far as, extra money in the budget that could be allocated to this type of thing. And then you said everything else is accounted for already. But then, when it comes to the federal government didn't tell everyone to shut down, right? Like Trump and the federal government's advised for social distancing, right? But states individually took it upon themselves to shut down, right? Cities and counties individually took it upon themselves to shut down. Now, they're doing that in the hopes that the federal government will come and bail them out, which is, again, it's one of the questions we've been asking for a long time. I mean, if you're a city or a county and you decided that your people have to all shut down, like, you probably should be held responsible for funding that. But nobody's thinking in that type of term, because they had no intention of actually like replacing the income lost, right? They were just hoping the federal government will come in and bail them out individually. And, again, this is kind of the problem, right? When you take from people all the way at the, at your household level, it goes all the way up to the federal government. You have to beg for your money back.
Well, I think what you're saying, Jake, that violates the spirit of having to make hard, balanced decisions. I think that Uncle Sam offering his pocketbook for infinite amount of shutdown is essentially giving people a blank check to be able to shut down as long as they want and have no consequences to bear because of it. And I really think that you have to stop it at some point. You have to say enough. You have to have a metric that says you've gotten enough money, you need to figure something else out now, other than taking from the federal government and making every other state in the union pay for your decisions.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
I don't think that line of thought is going to occur in regards to how.
Oh, it's not. It's not. That's
why we work in the world that we live in now. When it comes to Florida, Florida is very diverse when it comes to its economy, even though almost less than a quarter of it is tourism, which is going to take a big hit going forward. I do see, though, that there's going to be a great example of how quickly the economy is going to recover in the next 2 weeks. Depending on what we're seeing now in Georgia and some of the other states that kind of opened up over the weekend, is that you're watching restaurants fill to capacity after they've already cut their capacity by half.
I cannot wait to go get food. I know you want to go get brunch, Anibal. I know you do. And
you also see a lot of the mom and pop stores, which are barbershops, which are the small retail stores. They've all opened up and they're all filled to capacity.
They need to come back. I mean, we need our hair done.
Well, y'all need your hair done. I was able to secure mine appropriately. Man.
It's a struggle out there for a lot of us.
Well, and one of the things that I continue to say, and I think I've been saying this now for the past couple episodes, is that there's no reason why businesses cannot adopt the best practices and the CDC guidelines that are currently in place. As people return back to some sense of normalcy. It is going to be a big experiment that we're going to be watching take place here over the next couple of weeks. I mean, we're coming up at the end of April. And I think in 2 weeks from now, we're going to know really who was right, who was wrong in all of this as the numbers start to evolve.
Yeah.
Of course, we'll bring you those updates here.
And there will be places that spike, or there's a new cluster that is created because of the people coming out and starting to meet and greet and everything else. But you have to allow the American people to make the decision on what their risk level is. Some people won't go until mid-summer. Other people will continue to go forward and live the life that they're wanting to live. I think people have forgotten that we're not subjects in this country, but we are free people living in this community together as one. I am not a subject. I'm a free person. And allow me and my family to make the decision.
And everybody keeps asking the same kind of questions, right? Like everybody keeps asking, Jonny, I saw it on, we all post lots of Facebook statuses and have lots of input from all of our Democratic friends out there, right? And I see it from your friends, right? They're going, oh, how many deaths is it worth before, we can open back up, right? And then Chris, you talk about the TDT newspaper reporter who said, I'm not going to go out. I'm not willing to risk my life. And it's are you willing to risk your life? And then you have to tell all of them, well, right now, based on the numbers, I think we're looking at 0.005% of dying for this thing. Well, you know what? I'm going to leave my house if I know that there's a 0.005% chance of me dying. There kind of already is every time I leave my house, I would assume, right? From all kinds of other different things. You're going to go on living your life. If you're going to be one of these people who go, well, that on the off chance that I'm 0.005% chance of going to get killed when I leave the house, I'm just going to stay inside. Well, fine. Enjoy your bubble and hang out inside and do you. But, not everybody else doesn't need to follow it the same way. Again, you don't want to be reckless with it. We don't need to go back to filling stadiums right away. I get that. But at the same time, it's let's, like Jonny was saying, just everybody can handle CDC guidelines. We can handle social distancing. We can do all of these things and we can stay open for a little bit. And again, people need to get sick no matter what happens. You can't get rid of this virus at the end of the day.
Well, and Jake, as a lead into our next topic, the other side of that argument is how many millions of people have been thrown into poverty, have been thrown into economic despair over the shutting down of the country. And that's another thing that needs to be weighed into this equation. And the lives and the livelihood of the people who are still alive is just as important as those who have passed away.
And every time we've tried to do that for the past 2 months and say hey, look at this, look at the economy, look at what you're doing, destroying 27 million people unemployed, right? Versus how many people are in a hospital. When you try and weigh those two opinions as Republicans, everybody looks at you and they just go you want to kill people, right? That's not the reality of this, right? And so I don't even like talking about the economy anymore. Just talk about the numbers of the how much this actually kills people, how many people are hospitalized, how many beds are still available, how many ventilators are available. That's what the conversation was 3 or 4 or 5 weeks ago, right? Does anyone remember that? Again, we flattened the curve. We have plenty of open beds. We have plenty of ventilators. We have all the emergency supplies. So if we have all of those things, then you don't have to even have a discussion on the economy. And if you start to have a conversation about the economy, it looks pretty damn clear to me, 27 million people unemployed, tons in poverty, like all of the other suffering that's going on around the world versus a 0.005% chance of dying from this disease. I mean, it's clear as day, but I don't understand why we're still having these conversations.
Well, now the people on the far left want to try to keep everything locked down until there's a vaccine, which is absolutely absurd.
Yeah, there's not even, I mean, like, again, we talked about this last week. Even if you got a vaccine and call it like polio, right, and you start to vaccinate everybody slowly, it takes 5, 10, 20 years to fully say that this disease is eradicated, right? Yeah. That's not going to happen. What are we going to do? Shut down for 10 years while we get the vaccine spread around to everybody? Like, no, I mean, like the ridiculousness of some of the arguments is just, I mean, it's like, it's not even worth talking about, but unfortunately it's the conversations being had at a national level.
But this is the beauty.
If you watch the press conference that Ron DeSantis had at Tampa General Hospital today, he addressed a lot of the points you just covered, Jake.
Yeah. He
was talking about how we have hospitals asking for ventilators, and they say, well, how many people do you have in ventilators? And the statistic was there was 30 people or 60 people on ventilators in Florida, and we have 6,000 available. And they're like, why do we need any more? So that question was addressed, and that is a non-concern anymore. You have the doctor saying, anyone who wants to get tested can get tested. We have the CEO of Tampa General Hospital, John Torres, said today, we have no doubt in our minds as physicians and hospital operators that there is no way we can be overwhelmed by capacity here in Florida. So,
and that's the thing, is that you keep hearing people, like, for how many weeks is everyone going to stare at us and go, listen to the experts, listen to the experts, listen to the experts? Well, guess what? We listen to the experts that are right in front of us, the doctors that are treating people, the physicians who really don't have a concern for this overwhelming their hospitals.
And that's what we'll continue to see. The goal of this whole shutdown was to flatten the curve. Doesn't mean that we were going to eradicate the disease or that we were going to stop it from spreading. We were giving time for the hospitals and all of the manufacturers to come up with the EEPs, the ventilators, and the hospital beds. That was the whole purpose of this. And now you see that they're trying to change the narrative. Well, we shouldn't open up until there's a vaccine, or we shouldn't open up. It's for 18 months. And that's why the argument is, oh, we should be listening to people with doctorates and those that have the proper degrees to be able to make these decisions. No, we need to have a balance between the scientists and doctors and the economic professionals, and then ordinary individual citizens that are willing to take the risk. And again, you're seeing this now. The reason why there was such a big, I remember the articles from CNN and people making fun of Jared Kushner when he took control of the supply chains for all of the Federal Reserves and the federal government's infrastructure and all of their equipment. And they were screaming at him from New York, asking for 70,000 ventilators. Did they need 70,000 ventilators? No, they never needed that amount. And that's why you needed the adults in the room to say, I get what you're saying, but none of the data that we have shows that you need what you're asking for. And we can't just focus on you. We have to focus on the entire country. And this is why I love the fact, and it's sad that I'm going to say this, but the fact that we're still so far away from the election gives enough time for when this is all over, probably come midsummer is when we're probably going to be back to normal. Again, no one thought we were going to get by this quickly. But by midsummer, more reports will come out of what the real numbers were and will show that the decisions that were made by the Trump administration and the Ron DeSantis and a lot of the other Republican governors will show that they did the right thing and did the least amount of damage possible.
Well, one more point I want to mention before we get off this topic is right, I saw a report from someone on the news today that this, because of the food shortages and the supply chain shortages of disruptions this is going to cause, this will cause global starvation deaths. Mm-hmm. This is going to kill a lot of people, maybe equivalent to what the virus has killed, because of starvation and the fact that Americans cannot afford to give to people who are not able to feed themselves anymore in third world countries. So another factor to contribute to think about.
And from a partisan perspective, I think what we need to, again, realize that we've had this crisis. We had to spend a lot of money that we didn't have. And I would hope that Congress, first of all, we get control of the House so that way we can then pull the purse strings as we need to and make some serious budget cuts. Because
I wish, and that's the problem, Johnny, though, is that we have to look ourselves in the mirror as Republicans and say we had control of a lot of Congress and Senate and everything for a while. And you know what we didn't do? We didn't balance the budget, right? So the people up in Washington, read blue, whatever. They're not balancing the budget. They're not addressing the debt. I mean, you would think that the conversation should be entirely around the national debt going into this election. It won't be, but it should be.
Well, what'll be interesting to see is if Democrats try to make that a talking point, because again, they have no ground to stand on. No, because again, they want to spend more money, if anything, in all of this. So I think that's a perfect lead-in to talk about oil prices and to talk about where the economy is right now at a macro scale, which again, oil prices have just cratered. Which again, because nobody is driving, air traffic even has dropped by over 90%, and all of that affects oil prices, and including manufacturing. Even manufacturing has been cut back significantly because people aren't able to go to work, and so all of the things that we depend on oil for have contributed to oil prices cratering. And while that's been great for those of us who consume it and go, and now we have gas well below $2 a gallon, again, globally, that's going to cause all sorts of problems. Anibal, you understand this topic again better than most, and so I mean, again, it's easy to sit here and be like, yeah, look, it's great. I can fill up my boat, fill up my car. Like, it's costing me a lot less money. Even a buddy of mine who flies a plane, he's loving life because, even airplane gas is super cheap right now. But what are maybe some of the fallouts that we might see from oil just being at literally below a penny or below even,
trading negatively,
negative. Yeah, exactly.
So it was trading negatively. At the moment, it's trading for June futures are trading about $12. It should go further lower than that. I think it needs to go to zero, honestly. The last few months have shown that the world has not been, the OPEC countries are not willing to cut what needs to be cut. And because of that, there was already a 2 million barrel a day glut of oil before the pandemic started to begin with. So this is causing a lot of countries around the world to re-examine their economies and to figure out how to balance their budgets when they were fixed at $50, $40. Now it needs to go to zero. We need to have at least 5 million barrels of oil off the books right now. And they'll continue to go there because as every time you have the issue with not enough transportation, not enough processing space, and not enough storage capacity, every single time that happens, oil will drop down into the single digits and into zero. And it needs to happen for a few more months. I would say it's not going to go back to normal until summer. We're going to be switching from sweet to summer blend, from the winter blend. So until all that gets resolved, I don't see this happening. There's going to be spikes for the next few weeks, and it needs to happen. I don't think we're going to see that much pain in Florida, but there'll be some parts of the country that will see it. Midwest, Texas is definitely going to see it. But this is actually a hedge when it comes to inflation. The lowering of gas prices is a hedge to determine that, and you'll see that pushing back around the world as those markets are going to have to depend even further on the U.S. dollar, and that's going to strain the capacity of the dollars in circulation, which is about $1.8 trillion in circulation globally.
Well, I think as things begin to reopen, not only the United States, but even other countries around the world, I think having gas be so cheap right now is actually going to help things, get back to normal a lot quicker. What do you think, Chris?
I think you both hit on the points that I was just had on deck. But I think that transportation, fuel, and electricity costs has got such a huge effect on the cost of goods and services and the cost of producing goods and services. So I think that the lower costs are going to help a lot of people get back on track really quickly. And I couldn't think of a better time for it to happen. I mean, it's almost like a gift from wherever. I don't know, but I can't see...
For Russia.
yeah. I can't see a reason why this doesn't help us recover from this very quickly. And I also think that... go ahead, Jake.
I was just going to say, I mean, like, one of the things we didn't hit on is the fact that there are like oil wars going on, right? Like in the Saudi Arabia and they're in Russia, and they're trying to weaken each other, right? Because of the fact that if they can keep oil prices low, that really strains the economies that rely on that, right? So we're at a point now, if you don't follow oil futures, like, most people don't, when people say that I'm saying most people don't, right? So when you talk about the fact that it's trading negatively, means that they're producing so much oil that they actually need somewhere to store it. And they have to pay people to store it for them, right? That only lasted for a couple of days. But yeah, like you guys said, I mean, $10 a barrel, I mean, it's got to go back up. So, you know, if you want my yard sign investment advice, I would look into getting into some oil stocks, because long term, I think they're going to come right back up. We won't get into, we will not get too far into it.
No.
Don't listen to Anibal. But
I would not touch a oil investment for a little while, just because you need to see what happens once the tree is shaken, and which
we're not. So that's the thing, is that we're not going to get off of oil anytime soon, right? Has anybody started going into wind or solar during this time frame? Has anybody started doing anything? No.
T-Mobile has gone into wind.
No, unless the 5G network starts to power itself, we're gonna rely on oil for a lot longer, right? And actually, that leads me to the next thing, right? Is that when it comes to all of this, I would not be surprised in the next week or two to see some oil bailouts coming, and that is just going to be another addition to the amount of things that we're throwing money and printing money at. I would not be surprised at all. I mean, Trump tweeted earlier this week he's not going to let oil fail. He's not going to let coal fail.
But he also he wasn't going to allow bailouts. And so that is the type.
He was not going to allow them to fail.
He is going to have to walk that tightrope very delicately, because there's a difference. The reason why Russia and Saudi Arabia try to attack us and each other is because their economies and their countries are so connected to the producing of oil.
The bailout is coming.
However, there is not that much correlation when it comes to the U.S. government and that industry. Do I think so? I think it's going to be more consolidations and more bankruptcies, but I do not think it's going to be some form of bailout, because some of them were allowed to participate in the PPP, but majority of them were not.
Well, we already subsidized the whole industry, so I mean,
we subsidize everything. We subsidize everything. We subsidize the.
Well, and politically speaking, too, I mean, too many of these oil-producing states are red states, and I certainly don't see the president allowing those states to falter, in all of this. Texas being the biggest one, right? I think he's certainly going to extend a hand and try to keep it, as under the rug as possible. But that the left's going to hit him, if they bail out these oil companies, who again are known for making billions of dollars in revenue and that sort of thing.
They should have money saved up. The fact that they don't and they're going bankrupt, I mean, it goes to the bigger topic here about, just the economic impact that's taking place right now. At a very macro level, like what is happening right now, right? Like we've been printing money like crazy. We've got trillions and trillions of dollars getting printed out of the Fed, which is somehow combined to the Treasury even more than it already was. Our interest rates are down at zero. We've got quantitative easing at times infinity at this point.
We've had that for years.
And it's never been good.
Keep on going with your rant.
And it keeps going. Policy, no matter how
keep on going with your rant.
I will keep going with my rant. So what that means for us, though, because I think everybody's looking at this, because you should be looking at the fact that the stock market somehow has not moved, right? Like somehow we're like trading like 10 or 15% off of all-time highs, while 27 million people are unemployed. Right?
That's not true.
Those two things do not match up, right? Like, how have we not dropped significantly? The point is that
how have we not dropped significantly? We dropped 10,000 points in less than 2 weeks.
At 27 million people out of work, we should be
it's 10,000 points
in depression level. 10,000 point again.
The Dow's at 24.5 right now, Anibal.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying.
It was at 30 tops.
I know, that's what I'm saying.
You're 6,000 points out. You're a couple of days a couple of weeks from touching those highs again, which means that again there's a complete disconnect between.
Which means that the fundamentals of the U.S. economy is being projected accordingly.
No.
This argument multiple times, and I guess I do.
So let me finish my rant.
People being unemployed is a big deal. However, the fact that we have already started opening the economy is allowing for future traders and trade people individually to say that it's going to be more. It's not going to be I don't think it's going to be a V. I think it might be a U kind of recovery. Definitely not an L.
So we're playing a game. By the way, we're also playing a game right now where you can try and because everybody likes to guess in what letter shape the recovery is going to be. Is it going to be a V? Is it going to be a U? Maybe it's going to be a Nike swoosh. Like nobody really knows. Like what it is, right? So, but here's what I'm going with all of this is that what my prediction is that right now, everybody that I've talked to from Wall Street over the past week has told me the same thing: is that like this printing money situation is going to keep us afloat. Like it's going to work in the way that they want it to work. Now, what does that actually mean for the average everyday American? Like, they're unemployed still, right? They're probably not going to see it. They can't afford to buy stocks. They can't afford to buy into the asset classes that the upper 50% do. So that's, again, a massive disconnect between Wall Street and between your average person. But then, again, the fact that this is going to work and kind of bail out these companies for so long, again, we're constantly retaping together Humpty Dumpty right now, and we're putting Humpty Dumpty back on the wall again. But the next thing that comes along when the budget is stretched this thin, when we're already at this point that we've made, I think that, everyone keeps asking if we're going to see another depression. Well, we're going to see things pretty bad for a couple of months, but it's not going to be terrible. If we have another situation like a COVID where it comes along and it strikes the economy in the way that COVID has, or the way 2008 has, it's going to expose the situation that actually exists at the top of this. It's very complex. It's very complicated. But it starts to get you into all kinds of conspiracy theories not even conspiracy theories, but discussions over how long the dollar can be propped up like this, how long our assets can be propped up like this. And then all of a sudden, when are we moving asset classes? When are we moving
becoming
asset
a hollow
classes?
shell is what you're saying.
It very much. Very
Well,
much.
I think the biggest.
I do not agree with
here,
anything you just said the last minute.
I know you don't.
Continue.
That's fine.
The biggest lesson here, though, I think, and it's a point that, people have been making for some time now, yet we can't seem to get away from it, which is never has it been clear that the stock market is not the economy. Okay. It's a future indicator, right? We can kind of look at it and say, all right, maybe by this metric, we can say that we're headed in the right direction. But I don't think there's been a starker contrast as there is today, given how strong the stock market is, because I do think it's in a strong position, and then how terrible the economy is right now for the average day person because of coronavirus.
I don't want to give you guys the wrong numbers, but I can tell you right now that Amazon accounts for a large chunk of the stock market's performance. Apple accounts for a large percentage of the performance, right? So the entire stock market, the entire S&P 500.
A lot of staples are contributing to the stock market. Just paper products alone, those companies alone,
Tell me, Anibal, who other than big tech companies? Who other than big tech companies are holding up the stock market? Because right now it's Clorox,
No, but that's true. These are staples. These are staples that hold
P&G
and P&G, and these are companies that have been holding the economy just as much as the other ones. Now, I get what you're saying, and at the end of the day, the stock market.
It's big tech companies. It's big tech companies.
Took a huge drop when the economy started to show signs of what happened, and only now we're starting to move forward in that position.
Sorry, guys. These are part of the technical difficulties that involve doing the show from home.
So then mute yourself while you're having this issue.
I have to press a lot of buttons.
Yeah, I don't think Jake's dog agrees with Anibal either.
No, I mean,
my dog does.
He knows what he's talking about.
So I will say this: when it comes to how the economy is working, how it's meant, and I'm not going to use the word it's meant to be this way, but quantitative easing and what's happening right now is holding up 147 million people jobs. Even though
it is
5 so far. The goal of what's happening now is to ensure that we don't go into a situation where we have a complete crash of the system, to allow companies to continue to pay their workers and continue to move forward as what's going on right now. In regards to the dollar argument, we can have this argument multiple times when it comes to the rest of the world. But at the moment, the US dollar represents almost 80% of all foreign trade happening in the entire world.
Yeah.
And see entire other continents having such disastrous economic policies. The US dollar will never become like the Turkish lira or the Argentinian peso. You have to give it to credit that the
Roman, like the Roman currencies.
The size of the country, the size of where we're at right now. At one time, I think we had At one time we had 88% of all gold in the world. At one time, because we were one of the last countries to actually pull out of the gold standard after World War II. So those things that are holding us and holding the dollar up, it will continue. Just 2 weeks ago, the dollar rallied against all the baskets of different currencies by 4%. So I understand where your argument is, but we are in complete uncharted territory that the fundamentals is what's going to keep up the dollar and the U.S. economy.
There are fundamentals, but when the fundamentals
and that's why we use these funny letters that you said earlier, because that's what you have to give people these. You have to give people these examples of what it might look like or what might not look like.
Again, all of these these fundamentals that we're talking about are getting thrown out of the window, right? When you talk about things like quantitative easing and you talk about things like just printing money, these aren't fundamentals. They're artificial solutions to the institutions, right? And so what ends up happening is, again, not right now. I actually don't think this is going to be the moment, right? But in the next few years, between the next 1 to 10 years, when another one of these type of emergency situations happen, unless we've significantly decreased our debt, in case like we need to significantly decrease and open up our actual money. Let's make actual money here, right? Like investing in manufacturing, you're investing in innovation here. That's how you end up getting out of this, right? That needs to happen.
People are. You're talking about the destruction of the supply chain.
And if it doesn't, no, so the supply chain is one thing, but if it doesn't end up happening, if we don't get that debt off of the books in time for the next emergency to come, that will be the catalyst that throws us into Bitcoin. Just letting you know.
Oh my God!
Quantitative easing is to what guaranteeing subprime mortgages was in 2007. Mark my words.
Well, and I will tell you what quantitative easing is, and that is a killer for our audience, because I'm pretty sure we've lost just about half of the audience who has
but
no
it's
idea
important because, and by the way,
and
Jonny, I don't disagree with you. I do think that there are plenty of people who go quantitative easing, the stock market, all this stuff. It's really boring. But guess what? Those same people are the people who don't have anything invested in any of this, don't understand what's going on at a macro level. And that's what people at Wall Street and at the top of the government, all of the elite class, they count on people not understanding this stuff. And because they count on people not understanding this stuff, that's why you end up losing out of this. I mean, like, again, most people at the top are going to do fantastic when coming out of this thing, right? Like, you are going to see unprecedented growth if you are able to hold what you're doing right now, right? But all of your average Americans who don't want to listen to this conversation, that aren't going to watch the show, let's be honest, they're not watching the show. Our audience is full of intelligent, smart people, which is totally different.
But it's also touching almost everyone in the United States that has some form of investment article in regards to what investment vehicle. So a lot of Americans have connections to the stock market. They have connections to retirement. And that's the goal, is to prop up this. Again, there's reasons. And it's good that we have this debate, and it's good that we have this conversation so that we're able to verbally express what our opinions are without someone saying that you're trying to kill the world.
All right. Well, again, I'm sure as the weeks and months continue to unfold, we're going to see what this truly is going to do to the economy. But I say I've got to be a little bit concerned. I mean, I'm excited because, some of my stock is back to where it was pre-coronavirus. But on the other hand, I also haven't worked for 2 months. So, it's just like, those two worlds colliding, I think are going to be interesting to watch. Let's kind of start to wrap up the show on a much more exciting topic, because there's so little of sports these days. Here in Tampa Bay, I think we've been fortunate to have some exciting news, being that most people, I think, are kind of disappointed in what's been happening with the NFL draft. Here, it's kind of been a godsend because, of course, we now have Tampa Bay in Tom Brady.
Yes.
Who within a matter of 2 weeks has officially become a Florida man, breaking into people's houses, causing civil disobedience.
Didn't quite happen that way, but yeah, I get what you're saying.
You're right. And then now Rob Gronkowski coming out of retirement, and the Patriots just kind of hand him over for a couple of draft picks. I mean, I'm not a sports guy, but I'll tell you what, I haven't been excited about any sport like this since Dwayne Wade, LeBron James, and the big three down in Miami got together.
The greatest time in Miami history.
Oh yeah, and I think this could equally be just as big a deal.
I don't know. It's not. I will say it's not going to be. It will not be Big Three era Miami Heat. I will tell you that right now. We're not going for 7 championships, but I do think.
Well, neither did they.
Well, they were, but they were close. They were close. I mean, three championships in a row is a pretty big accomplishment. So I will say that.
Yeah. I mean, they established a legit dynasty.
Statistics.
Go ahead.
So the statistics of what is happening in the Tampa Bay area, and just looking at what the numbers look like. I'm a numbers guy. Of what the possibility of Tampa getting to the Super Bowl. And February 3rd was a 50-1. March 17th was 22-1. And as of today, it was 14-1. So I would like to say, welcome to Tampa Bay.
Yeah. So anyway, we're gonna have to work on the nicknames because I think that we're not great with Tampa Bay yet. But but what I will say about this is that, again, in a time where people are craving something that takes their mind off of the economic downturn, right? That takes their mind off of COVID, right? Like just to hear something on the news that isn't about coronavirus, like it's big news, right? I mean, the NFL draft was just a few days ago, which was supposed to be the biggest day of a lot of these kids' lives. And they all were sitting at home having to do, virtual calls, and then the coaches are doing virtual calls from their homes and all of those things. And like, it's kind of surreal to watch, but at least there's some resemblance of what a normal year looks like for everybody. And then again, hopefully they figure out a way to spread people out in the stadium or however the hell they want to do it for social distancing, but get those games played, get things started, and get people back to normal life, right? And then to talk about, Tom Brady and Tampa Bay, I mean, like, welcome to Tampa Bay. We're sorry that our mayor kicked you out of the park. We're sorry people keep pulling up behind Derek Jeter's house to come see you. All of those different things. But again, as a Dolphins fan my whole life and a South Florida sports fan my whole life, like I've always hated Tom Brady, and I think like most of the country has, and they've hated the Patriots. Yeah. But here we are, and now he's in Tampa, and I'm ready to sign my bandwagon forms for a year while the Dolphins rebuild, and while Tampa Bay goes on their championship run. I mean, like I can't wait to see Gronk down at McDitton's and spike some balls with them.
Well, the NFL has to be over the moon about the fact that they got one of their biggest personalities back into the game. People just love Gronkowski because he is such a big personality. It kind of brings that WWE element to the game where he brings energy, passion to the game. He's a character. He's phenomenal in interviews. And there was a meme I posted that I don't think there's going to be this much excitement as there will be for a long time for Gasparilla when we see Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski on a float coming down Bayshore Boulevard. And
they're winning the Super Bowl.
That's right. Hopefully with a Super Bowl trophy. And I think, again, I think everybody's going to benefit from this because they're going to be watching Tampa Bay very closely. Hopefully they'll hang on to O.J. Howard because I think he'd be a great weapon for Tom Brady. But I think this is a huge win for the NFL in addition to Tampa Bay. And what a marketing godsend it is that, the initials for Tampa Bay are TB, for Tom Brady. And, if he wants to trademark, the stupid nicknames, I mean, go right ahead.
Love it. I love it. Let capitalism win, because at the end of the day, it's going to be a great year next year because we're going to have the Super Bowl in Tampa with those two and maybe a few more coming to Tampa to play. And so the likelihood of us getting the spirit of us trying to get the Super Bowl while we will be playing the Super Bowl in Tampa is such a big wind behind their backs that I think it's going to be a great addition to the city. And I do agree. I think the mayor had to do a mea culpa issue, and she did a proclamation letter and everything, apologizing.
Pandering.
Well, that's because her first few comments was ridiculous, making it almost sound like, well, yeah, he's going to be arrested if he stays in the parks. I need you to calm down. I need you to calm down and get off of MSNBC and just focus on reopening the city and Hillsborough County. Because I'm telling you right now, we're probably going to get the safer at home order lifted by Thursday. And when that happens, Tampa needs to be ready to start working again.
And I will give credit right now to people probably wondering all around the country, like, what the heck are these guys doing down in Tampa Bay, right? Like, why did Tom Brady decide to leave and all that stuff? Well, our GM actually was one of the ones that scouted Tom Brady back in the day out of college, and he was the one that picked him. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, picked him out and was the one that drafted him in the 6th round. And now he's our GM down in Tampa. And that's I can't imagine that there's not some favors being repaid there for, you brought me in at the beginning of my career and took a shot on me. I'm going to come and take a shot on you in Tampa Bay. And it's a big deal. It is a big deal for Tampa. I mean, like, it's just sports at the end of the day, but it's not just sports. It's going to end up lifting the entire city. And not just lifting the entire city, the entire NFL coming back. I think that there's going to be such a amazing moment the first time they go and start a football game in this country at full capacity, or play a championship game at full capacity after this all finishes, that it's just going to do something to our spirit that's not measurable.
Yeah. Well, and I'll add something to what you just said too, which I think another dynamic of this whole Tom Brady Rob Gronkowski deal is not only the personal relationship there that you just mentioned, but after someone who has historically, and it's well documented, been underpaid as a member of the New England Patriots, he's now coming to a state that has no state income tax, and he is going to cash in big time, as he should. I mean, he is absolutely one of the best that have ever played the game, and and hopefully, again, he'll make his mark here and spend the last 2-3 years, which is what he wanted. He wants to play, for another 2 or 3 years, and hopefully he'll end his career here in Tampa Bay, and hopefully stay beyond that.
So, as a hockey fan, I've been dying to go watch hockey. We just missed the most intense part of our entire season, the pre-playoffs, and now playoffs would be starting if it were normal operation. And it's depressed me, but to the credit of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, this excites me because I can jump on that bandwagon with Jake and enjoy football, some exciting competitive football for the next year or a couple of years to be able to have something to enjoy in Tampa Bay. We'll have a good hockey team, a good football team, and I think this will really lift us out of this depression or recession in Tampa Bay faster than anybody else, because the attention is going to bring from the national media and from everyone who's a football fan.
Well, to Jake's point, because I'm also, a South Florida native, having been born and raised in Miami, as big as the draft news was about the Miami Dolphins drafting Tua, I am still infinitely more excited for what's going to happen with the Buccaneers this season.
He needs a year to sit.
Yeah.
I was actually going to make a comment about the NFL or the hockey, because I was reading articles saying that they're thinking of opening up the states that are going to start opening up, that they're going to allow for practices to start for the NHL. Yeah. So that might be moving in the forward in that position. Also with baseball, I don't know anything about baseball yet, but I do know that baseball wants to finish the season.
We don't like baseball in Tampa Bay. We're done.
I love baseball because I am a Latino, and that's just in the blood. We need to finish the season. But
you're Dominican. We understand.
I know. It is what it is. It's half the country plays baseball already.
You're our very own Big Papi, So.
Hey, Papi.
That's right. Hey, thank you so much to everybody for watching. Thank you to BizPack Review, Conservative News Today for their partnership and helping us do this show every single week. We love you for watching. Thank you for all the comments. Please continue to share those comments with us. Share the show if you can. Don't forget, you can catch our show on all the podcast platforms as well. Google, Apple, Spotify. Make sure you subscribe and you review those shows for us. It helps us grow the show. Only takes you a few minutes, and we infinitely appreciate you for doing that. We're going to bring you another packed show next Monday, 7 o'clock on Facebook, as we do every week. But you can also catch full episodes on YouTube as well. On behalf of Anibal, Chris, VerKuilen, Jake Hoffman, I'm Jonny Torres. Thank you so much for watching, and we hope to see you back again here next week. Say goodbye, guys.
See ya.
Bye. Welcome to Tampa.
Thank God he didn't actually say it.